The BFG by Rodal. Well, depending on the kind of viewer you are, you will watch the following videos in a way or another. If you are one of my students here at CCA, one of my group students, you can watch the videos and just review some of the things we worked in class, you know. Throughout the videos I will ask many questions and you can answer those questions to yourselves, or you can send the questions to Mari if you want an extra optional practice, okay? If you are a new student here at CCA, or if you missed the classes where I worked this story, then you have to send the audios to me. So you should pause the video as the video goes on, and you should send me the audio so I can send you a feedback, right? If you are not my student, you are just a viewer of the channel, then I think you have two possibilities. First possibility, you can pause the videos and answer the questions to yourself, or of course you can become my student if you want some interaction and feedback, okay? Remember that in the link here, in the description, there will be the link of the Quizlet you can use to practice vocabulary. If you have any questions, just contact me, alright? So what are we going to do? We are going to read the whole story, but I will not just read it, I will explain, I will ask you questions. So the idea is not to read a book, but to acquire the language we have in this book. So without any further ado, let's start. The Witching Hour. Sophie couldn't sleep. A brilliant moonbeam was slanting through a gap in the curtains. It was shining right onto her pillow. The other children in the dormitory had been asleep for hours. Sophie closed her eyes and lay quite still. She tried very hard to doze off. It was no good. The moonbeam was like a silver blade slicing through the room onto her face. Sophie couldn't sleep. A brilliant moonbeam. Keep in mind that a beam is like a ray, right? You can have a sunbeam, that is the ray from the sun, or you can have the moonbeam in this case. So there was a moonbeam there bothering Sophie. And our challenge now is to understand how was the moonbeam entering the room. So first of all, let's understand the gap. We'll see in the story that the window behind the curtains are wide open, or the window is wide open, but the curtains are closed, almost completely closed. There is a gap, you know, between the curtains, and it's through this gap that the moonbeam enters. Now think about it. The moon is up there, right? And the room is here. So the moonbeam doesn't enter the room like this, you know, in a horizontal straight line, but it enters slanting. So slanting through the gap in the curtains, right? Right onto her pillow. So of course she couldn't sleep because that light was on her face. We still don't know what kind of place is this, because we know the other children in the dormitory had been asleep. So my first question for you is, in your opinion, what kind of place is Sophie in now? So if you have to answer, depending on what kind of student you are, pause the video, send me an audio, right? This is part of the activity. You have to send me an audio. If you don't have to answer, pause the video and answer to yourself. Or maybe you would prefer just to continue the video. But every time I say answer, I would hardly recommend that everybody pause and answer to themselves. So, what kind of place is Sophie in? Answer. I'm not going to answer it yet, but we'll see, right? So she closed her eyes and lay. Be very careful because lay is a complex verb. You know, because lay it is the past of lie, which is the opposite of, what is the opposite of lie? Answer. Well, your answer could be to, right? The opposite of lie is to tell the truth, but this is not the opposite I want. So if you answered tell the truth, pause the video again and give me the other opposite for lie. Answer. So the other opposite for lie is to be standing, right? I am standing, I am lying. Now be careful because the past of lie is not lied as the past of lie to not tell the truth, right? The past of lie is lay. Let's organize the thing. When I don't tell the truth, I lie, and the past of that verb is lied. When I'm not sitting or standing, I lie, but the past of that verb is lay. Okay? So, she lay quite still, not moving. Don't use stopped, right? Brazilians tend to use stopped, or even stopped, as Brazilians tend to pronounce, right? O carro está parado, o carro ficou parado por 20 minutos, right? The car was stopped for 20 minutes. No, it's not nice. The car was still. The car was not moving, all right? That's important. So, she lay down there, quite still, because she was trying to doze off, okay? Doze off is when you start sleeping. It's like fall asleep. Be careful, because, you know, there's a baby. Let's imagine there's a baby. And then people look at the baby, and then suddenly the baby is sleeping. And then you say, oh, look, the baby slept. Not the best way to say that, right? The baby slept a lot yesterday. Describing the state the baby was sleeping. When you want to say the baby started sleeping, so, oh, look, the baby fell asleep, right? Fell asleep is the most common one. And of course we have the expression here that is doze off, right? And then there's a very nice image of this moonbeam slanting through the gap in the curtains. Keep in mind that if I have a knife, I don't have a knife here, but if I have a knife, I have two parts of the knife. One I can hold and the other that cuts. Answer, what are the two parts of a knife? So the two parts of the knife are the handle and the blade. Okay? Now imagine this room is completely dark. It is very, very dark, right? And because it's just a very thin moonbeam entering through the curtains, it's just like a knife cutting through the darkness, you know? And even the shape of that moonbeam can remind you of a knife. Okay? So, I'm going to read it one more time. See if everything is okay. Sophie couldn't sleep. A brilliant moonbeam was slanting through a gap in the curtains. It was shining right onto her pillow. The other children in the dormitory had been asleep for hours. Sophie closed her eyes and lay quite still. She tried very hard to doze off. It was no good. The moonbeam was like a silver blade slicing through the room onto her face. The house was absolutely silent. No voices came up from downstairs. There were no footsteps on the floor above either. The window behind the curtain was wide open. But nobody was walking on the pavement outside. No cars went by on the street. Not the tiniest sound could be heard anywhere. Sophie had never known such a silence. Perhaps, she told herself, this was what they called the witching hour. Well, keep in mind that probably we are talking about a big construction, right? Because we have the downstairs and we have the upstairs. So there is a floor below Sophie and another floor above Sophie. So my question now is, have you changed your mind about where she is now? Where do you think she is? Answer. Well, I'm not going to answer that one. So let's see. As I told you, the window behind the curtain was open, but it was not just open, it was wide open. If you go to the doctor, for example, the doctor may ask you to open your mouth wide and say, ah. You're not going to open your mouth like this, oh, ah. You're going to open your mouth wide, ah, right? You can receive your friend with arms wide open. Come here, my friend. All right. Very nice. Okay, so not even the tiniest sound, you know, the smallest tiny sound could be heard, right? Completely silent. Well, perhaps because it's such a silence, so perhaps maybe because such a silence, this could be the witching hour. Of course, the witching hour, we are talking about the hour of the witch. Keep in mind, she heard no footstep. Right? No footstep anywhere. So, completely silent. Outside, nobody was walking on the sidewalk. Remember, you have the street, and then beside the street you have the sidewalk, right? Our book here is calling it the pavement, right? Like the floor outside. We don't call it floor. Usually we call it floor inside, all right? Okay, I think we've covered everything so far. So let me reread it. The house was absolutely silent. No voices came up from downstairs. There were no footsteps on the floor above either. You know, the narrator was very smart here, you know, because usually, you know, voices go up, right? Voices go up, and of course you can't hear the footsteps of people downstairs, right? And upstairs, of course, chances are much higher you are going to hear footstep, okay? Well, the window behind the curtain was wide open, but nobody was walking on the pavement outside. Walking, okay? The correct pronunciation, not walking. No cars went by on the street. Not the tiniest sound could be heard anywhere. Sophie had never known, in this case here, had never experienced, had never heard, had never had contact with such a silence. Perhaps, maybe, she told herself this is what they called the witching hour.